Ah, Quebec, la belle province. A land of serene forests, sparkling lakes, historic waterways and towns, agricultural areas, and the wild expanses of the mighty St. Lawrence River. A cyclist's paradise. This is Cycling Quebec. Crisp September air filled my lungs as I crossed the Ottawa River. A week of rest had rejuvenated my spirit and I was ready to explore again. Joined by my parents, the journey through Quebec began along the National Capital Pathways Network and alongside the picturesque Gatineau River. After parting ways with my family, it was on to Gatineau Park and its main parkway. This road is frequently closed to vehicle traffic and an immensely popular local cycling and recreation destination. Back down at the banks of the Gatineau River, I followed the Voie Verte to Chelsea, heading north on the spectacular gravel of this old train line. In the town of Wakefield, I crossed the iconic Wakefield Covered Bridge to the east bank of the Gatineau River. And with the sound of crickets filling the pleasant evening air, quiet gravel roads led through the countryside to end my first day of cycling in Quebec. The morning brought a cool fog hanging over the lakes and rivers. As it began to burn off, I crossed the Powgan Dam back to the west bank of the river. Here began the Veloroute des Draveurs, a 70-kilometer section of bike paths passing through peaceful forest and quiet countryside on pleasant gravel. The trail eventually became paved and wound alongside shimmering lakes of bright blue water. From the town of Maniwaki, I shortcut onto roads 107 and 117 to connect to the town of Mont Orford. My time on one of the most spectacular bike paths in Canada started here. For a total of 234 kilometers, I was now following the Petit Train de Nuit, a world-class rail trail that would lead to the outskirts of Montreal. Most of the time on the Petit Train du Nord was spent in peaceful solitude in beautiful forest. However, the trail's charm lies not only in its natural beauty, but also in its historical character. Old train stations have been repurposed into cozy rest stops, offering cyclists the chance to refuel, repair, and relax. After 3 leisurely days on the trail, I crossed the Rivière des Mille Îles into Laval and onto an incredible network of cycle paths leading into Montreal. This was one of the most pleasant cities to cycle in, with plenty of route options to choose from in regards to cycling infrastructure. It really does make such a difference to have a city care about active transportation, and Montreal's commitment to cycling is truly inspiring, as seen through the over 1,000 kilometers of bike lanes found throughout the city. I only spent one brief night in the city before heading out again, en route south of the St. Lawrence towards Chambly. After a lovely night hosted by and reconnecting with friends, it was off from the historic Fort Chambly and up the Chambly Canal. This region of Quebec is known as the Eastern Townships, and in addition to its rich agricultural production, it is also known for its forest reserves and healthy recreational opportunities at the local mountains, and especially for cyclists, the expansive rail trail network that connects the communities in the area. Entering Mont Orford Park, lovely gravel trails led up through rich forest. This park was a lovely pocket of nature, complete with wonderful trail systems and pleasant lakes for swimming and recreation. Following the Route Verte and Trans-Canada Trail here was incredibly straightforward, yet still with a nice variety of trail surfaces and scenery to keep it interesting. After a night near the village of North Hatley, the Riverside Massawippi Trail followed its namesake river and onwards to the town of Sherbrooke. With a large rainstorm coming in the forecast for this night, I searched out a trailhead shelter to stay in. These little picnic rest stops were fairly common along the rail trails in Quebec and definitely worked to provide great shelter from many storms. When the rain abated the next morning, it was yet again off on Veloroute, through lands that began to flatten out and become more agricultural with every kilometer onwards to Quebec City. The final stretch to Quebec City was marked by 60 kilometers of straight path, yet the beauty of the surrounding countryside kept me captivated. Arriving in the town of Lévis, the trail led over the Chaudière Falls suspension bridge, with sweeping views of the namesake waterfall. Then it was down to the shores of the St. Lawrence River, with my sights set on Quebec City. A short ferry hop brought me across the river and into town. For once I had actually arrived in a major city during the day, and as such enjoyed a few hours of relaxing cycling and sightseeing around the old town area. Again, I was hosted for just one night and then crossed back to the south shore of the river. I met back up to stay with a friend, and we cycled part of the day together downstream next to the St. Lawrence River. In the evening, a beautiful riverside camp spot allowed for incredible night sky vistas, and through the night, the water slowly receded. Here, the St. Lawrence was now tidal. In this middle estuary section, freshwater and saltwater mix, sediment is trapped in the cycle, and the waters of the river as such are highly turbid. Following the south shore of the river, I had an incredible day of strong tailwinds, flying fast down Veloroute and quiet roads. The afternoon brought wonderful views of the soaring cliffs above the beautiful region of Kamouraska. From the town of Rivière-du-Loup, I decided to catch a ferry to the north shore of the river. I spent the night in Saint-Siméon and then began the Veloroute des Baleines, or the whale cycling route. This first took me on a highway through rolling hills and untouched forest. Then eventually it was back down to the river, where began the Saguenay-St. Lawrence Marine Park. This park is most famously home to close to 2,000 beluga whales, some of which I was fortunate enough to spot from the ferry across the mouth of the Saguenay River. This spot marks the start of the marine estuary of the St. Lawrence, where nutrient-rich waters are home to many whales and other wildlife. After a quick lunch break in the touristy village of Tadoussac, a short cycle led me past the magnificent local dunes. The majority of the cycle route here was once again away from the river, on highway with decent shoulder, but near Grand Bergeron, one small bike path was enjoyable for a few hundred meters. There are a few incredible campgrounds on the shores of the river here. I remember coming here on a road trip as a child and whale watching from these rocks. It was very special to be able to return and experience this place again. In the morning, a minke whale broke the surface first before sunrise. And it was followed soon after by playful harbor porpoises. This morning was one of the most special I'd had, being able to watch whales directly from the tent. With gratitude, it was off early to catch the ferry from Les Esquimaux and cross the St. Lawrence for the final time. Trois Pistoles, bike paths started right away. The Veloroute here passed first along farms and fields, and then climbed a series of steep hills soaring a few hundred meters above the St. Lawrence. A highlight here was the Belvedere Beaulieu, an incredible panoramic observation platform looking out over the St. Lawrence River and accessible only from the bike and hiking path. The end of this full day brought me down once again near the shores of the river at Parc du Bic. I watched the sunset for a while from the road before cycling the last few kilometers to camp. Early in the morning, beautiful gravel paths led me out of the park. And with a last glance at Parc du Bic, it was onwards into Rimouski. The bike paths led all the way through town, and after, it was back onto quiet secondary road next to the river. At Sainte Flavie, I turned away from the St. Lawrence. I'd thought about cycling around the Gaspé Peninsula, but many days of incoming windy weather and a desire to balance my time in Quebec with what I would need in the remaining provinces led me to skip that for now and head instead through the Matapedia Valley. This route is still part of the Route Verte network. The northern half was a mix of highway riding through pastoral hills and back roads, and bike paths between communities. While the second half passed through beautiful forested valley alongside the Matapedia River. Here it was mostly riding on the highway, but with hardly any traffic. I finally arrived at the shores of the Restigouche River, part of the border between Quebec and New Brunswick. In the distance, the city of Campbellton and the bridge across the mouth of the river. Reflecting on my journey through Quebec, I was filled with gratitude. The province's stunning landscapes, well-maintained cycling infrastructure, and warm hospitality had made this trip an unforgettable experience.